Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to the Sports Ball Talk Show. There is so much insert cuss word football stuff to talk about today. Free agency
Too much.
has begun, and so much has already happened. So this is probably just going to be titled every free agency that's every trade that's every pickup that's happened so far. It's because it's what it is. It's going to be a very long video because we're going to analyze some of these things, but we're just going to jump into it because there's not much time to read through all these. So starting off with the most hurtful, the Vikings released Adam Thielen. This is heartbreaking because Adam Thielen has the most beautiful Cinderella story ever, coming out of college, undrafted, picked up by the Vikings, and proved himself to be a scary receiver. I've said this for the last few years, even when he hasn't been the number one guy in Minnesota, that he is a top 10 receiver in terms of pure skill. The way he gets separation and makes catches whenever he's covered is far greater than most other receivers, and his red zone presence is insane. I mean, he was getting 14 touchdowns a season, recently here with Justin Jefferson. He was a really good, big-bodied red zone threat, and him getting released just hurts. I understand he wasn't going to win a ring, and they have to start making money for Justin Jefferson coming up here soon, but Adam Thielen, I hope you go to a team that can win a ring next year, so you get that opportunity because you deserve it. And I know Vikings fans everywhere are upset about this, but I guess it's business. The Vikings are the big losers of free agency is what we're going to kind of unpack. They lost a lot of players and haven't really signed anyone. So that's it for the Vikings for now, unless you want to say anything about Adam Thielen, in which case now is the time.
I mean, if now is the time, Adam Thielen, I loved watching you play, man. I learned a lot about football watching you growing up. It sucks to see you go. Hopefully you go to a team that's in need of receivers.
Chiefs.
Patriots, from what I believe. But anyways, not that I'm a Pats fan at all. Hey, you can go to the Dolphins if you'd like. But dude, you're awesome. I'm gonna be getting a jersey of yours. You're a great football player. Sky's the limit for you, man. Keep up what you're doing. I'm best friends with a Vikings player. We love watching you play every Sunday. So we wish the best for you.
All right,
yes, sir.
Moving on to the Ravens, another big loser of free agency. They have released Calais Campbell, a stud on their team. I guess they're trying to make room in the cap space, so they released Calais Campbell. Not smart, but it is what it is. Moving on to one of the big winners of free agency so far, the Panthers have made a lot of moves. Now, the Panthers are quickly becoming the, I would say, steamroller of the NFC South, just given the weakness of the division. But they have signed Miles Sanders, fantastic RB1, Hayden Hurst, who I feel like is one of the most underrated tight ends in the league. He hasn't played for that long and is already on his fourth NFL team, starting off with the Ravens, then the Falcons, then the Bengals, and now at the Panthers. I guess the Falcons I get. Thing is, it just sucks because he was on the Ravens, and then because they had Mark Andrews, they let him go. Then they went to the Falcons, and because they got Kyle Pitts, they let him go. So he went to the Bengals, and because they have to make money because they need to be able to pay T. Higgins, Jamar, Joe Burrow, etc. They had to release him. Now he's on the Panthers on a 3-year deal. Or is it a 4-year deal? One of those two. Either way, I hope he stays there for a while and has success because I like Hayden Hurst. He's one of my favorite tight ends personally, and I think in terms of just skill and production, top 10 easy to tight end. And good tight ends are hard to come by in this league. I think you can name on both hands the number of tight ends you can just name that are not named for the sake of saying you're bad at your position. So Hayden Hurst. Andy Dalton, surprisingly, moving over from the Saints to the Panthers. I guess they had this in case their pick doesn't go well. I don't know. Good veteran QB to mentor as well, and I think Andy Dalton is a decent, reliable quarterback to just get you through some tough times if you need that. And then Von Bell, a great defensive stud from the Bengals. The Bengals are another big loser this offseason so far. They're losing a few players. We're going to get into some of the other ones later on, but losing Von Bell is big. And then the trade. They have been said to have gotten fleeced here. Now, I think the consensus among most sports analysts, like ourselves, true professionals, is that it kind of depends.
True professionals.
They got rid of a lot. They traded 2 first-rounders, a couple second-rounders, and DJ Moore. Their only player people could pretty much name, besides if you're really into the team, guys like Brian Burns and stuff like that. But to get the first overall pick, move up from spot 9 to spot 1. Now, if they get CJ Stroud and he ends up being the talent that people expect him to be, it's worth it. Because if you give up a few first-round picks, but you have your franchise guy for the next 10, 15 years, it doesn't matter. Especially with these free agency signings you got. But the problem is, these picks rarely work out. Number one overall picks don't come often. Like Peyton Manning, John Elway, Steve Young are some of the few of the greats that have been first overall picks. So it's kind of tough to rely on that. But even if not, they still got a decent enough team that they could squeak a win of the NFC South, assuming they only need 8 or 9 wins to get that because the division is so weak. So good for the Panthers. I'm not a fan of them, but they've done a lot, so good for them. Moving on to another NFC South team, the Saints. As we said last week, they signed Derek Carr. They have now signed Jamal Williams as well, which makes them interesting. Getting Derek Carr and Jamal Williams. And once again, it seems like this NFC South is kind of bolstering themselves up a little bit. I think the Saints still are going to have the cap issue, but they got a nice young core. They got Chris Olave, who's young. They got Jamal Williams and Derek Carr, who they can, I guess, afford. And Jamal Williams, absolute monster. 17 rushing touchdowns last year. If you can keep up any amount of that production, he'll be insane, along with Derek Carr and the rest of that Saints offense. The Bears gaining 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and a stud in DJ Moore, as well as signing Tremaine Edwards on defense. People still say giving up Roquan Smith was a bad idea, but I think they've kind of recovered from that by getting Tremaine Edwards. Obviously not near as good. I didn't say not near as good as Roquan Smith, because he's very, very good, but he is not Roquan Smith. But they did get a couple of first-rounders, a couple of second-rounders, and DJ Moore, who's a proven good number 1 receiver. So the Bears are looking to be a team next season. Now that we know the Packers are probably going to fall off, now that they've lost, now that they're going to lose Aaron Rodgers, and they've lost a couple others like Alan Lazard. The Vikings are obviously going to take a major step back, losing several key defensive players. They've lost Adam Thielen, so they're probably going to regress. I think it's going to be a Bears-Lions division next year. I could see both of them making the playoffs next year very easily. Moving on, the Steelers have signed Patrick Peterson. There's another defensive loss for the Vikings. The Steelers, I don't really think they needed it. I don't know why he's going to a team that isn't in a win-now position, because Patrick Peterson has been playing long enough that you think he's going to go somewhere where he wants to win. And I don't see the Steelers being that, but I guess Steelers are obviously going to get better from that. It's hard to go down when you sign a Patrick Peterson, but it is what it is, I guess. Probably got a decent bag, so good for him. The Eagles...
I mean, I kind of feel like... Oh, my bad.
No, go ahead.
I kind of feel like the Steelers are in a position to... So, I think having Patrick Peterson helps, especially when you're in a division where you have the Bengals who have T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. And Minka Fitzpatrick could only cover one of the two. Now you having Patrick Peterson there, you have both of them covered. And then same goes now with the Browns. Now that Deshaun's there, and we all know Deshaun's got an arm. Who knows if the Browns pick up a couple of receivers here, shut them down. And the Ravens, with their whole situation, the Ravens aren't really pass first offense at all. Having as many, I would argue, having as many DBs and CBs definitely helps them out. I think this was a smart on the. I think this was smart.
It's definitely an upgrade. I just think that their money would have been better spent elsewhere, because although that bolsters up their defense wasn't really the problem. It was my point, and so I think spending that on the offense would have been a little bit smarter. But I trust Mike Tomlin. I think they still think Kenny Pickett's going to be a guy. Which last season for a rookie he played very very well. So if he ends up in having this massive second season leap, especially if they get another wide receiver, I mean. George Pickens was insane this past year. Deontay Johnson is still a guy there. I mean, he's nothing crazy, but he's still a good receiver. Go draft another one. Get Najee Harris some help, because by himself, he really can't do much back there. Maybe beef up the O-line. I don't know. Some with that offense, but...
Yeah, definitely beef up that O-line, man. That O-line needs all the help it can get. And if you can protect a guy like Kenny Pickett, sky's the limit for him.
Yeah, for sure. Also, it's interesting with this AFC North. So it seems like the Ravens are going to take a dip because they're losing some players, some very good defensive players. Probably going to lose a piece or two of the offense, like they've already lost with Hayden Hurst. So the Bengals are going to dip. I don't know what this AFC North holds next season. I think the Bengals are still going to be very, very good. They'll still probably get 10 wins, which might be enough to win the division. I think it's going to be a Bengals-Steelers division next year, because the Steelers barely missed it this year, and it's supposed to be a rebuild year, keep mind you. They're going to take a decent lead. They might get 9 or 10 wins. The Ravens, I think, slip a pretty good bit unless they somehow keep some of these pieces of whatever few pieces they have left and keep Lamar healthy. They're going to probably dip down to 7 or 8 wins. And then the Browns, they didn't get it done this year. They made some questionable offseason moves so far. Nothing crazy positive has happened. So we'll see, I guess, what ends up happening with them. But I think it's going to be a Steelers-Bengals division next year. And who do you think between those two comes out on top? Just knowing what's happened so far, because the Steelers are taking going up, and the Bengals are trending down. So, at what point do the Steelers cross over the Bengals? Do you think?
I still think it's Bengals, just because Joe Burrow and with those two weapons, T Higgins and Jamar Chase. I mean, between those two, it's like impossible. Although the Bengals also lost Samaje Perine, so and then the whole Joe Mixon.
That's true.
issue.
I didn't even write down Samaje. Where did
We don't know.
Samaje go?
Let me double check. Samaje Perine.
We're seeing that. It's the one that I did not write down for some reason. How did Samaje Perine go?
Taking a look here. Give us a second, guys, while we figure this out. Yeah, I remember seeing it, and I just don't know where it went.
Interesting.
Well, without Samaje, without Hayden Hurst, and then with some issue with Joe Mixon, we won't know what's going to come up. That puts them in a worse spot offensively.
Right.
So right now it's looking like the Bengals got draft pick 28. It's still a good pick for them to maybe pick up a stud running back, but it's going to be interesting to see how that works out for them, because the Steelers' real issue right here is just bolstering their O-line. If they could bolster their O-line just from this draft and maybe a couple of trades, I think the Steelers are good to go.
Right, yeah.
And I think this would be their year, just because their defense is a lot better, they're more bolstered, and their offense is a little more rounded out.
Yeah.
Whereas everyone's going to expect now the Bengals to be throwing more often than not, so they're going to focus more on their secondary rather than up front, their defensive front.
And
so
imagine if Najee Harris plays like he did his rookie year too. Like he took a major step back this past year, but if he gets back to where he was, that's a very scary Steelers team that is going to be playing against him twice a year.
And their tight end, the Steelers tight end, Pat Freiermuth. Great. Phenomenal tight end.
Great.
I think the Steelers take the division this year. I think this is a Steelers year for sure.
Very possible, yeah. And then the Bengals maybe fight for a wildcard spot. But anyway, moving on to the next team. This is actually where Samaje Perine went. The Broncos. The reason we couldn't find this is because we were going through primarily the NFL page on Instagram to get just the dialed up list of everything. They took down the post of Samaje Perine. I don't know why, but that's not there anymore, but that's where he's going. So the Broncos got Samaje Perine. I guess how about Javonte Williams, because coming back from an ACL tear is horribly painful. Although Javonte Williams, insane upside. If he's healthy and plays like he did this past year, the one game that he played, the Broncos will be nasty. But they got Samaje Perine, who's an insane pass catcher. They've got Jarrett Stidham. They signed as a backup QB, I guess, for Russell Wilson.
Yep.
And then, I might pronounce this wrong, Mike McLeish. Maybe you know how to pronounce that, Mike McLeish. I'm not good with.
No, I don't know. But hey, anybody to bolster that O line for the Broncos, Mike McGlinchey. I don't know.
McLeish, yeah. I mean, he's an amazing.
Sorry
tackle.
for mispronouncing it, buddy. Oh yeah. No, phenomenal for the 49ers. He was a key piece of that offense.
He got signed to a pretty big deal too. It was almost $100 million for 5 years. So
yeah, 5 years for 87.5, dude.
Yep.
Make your bank, guy. Make your bank.
Yeah. Moving on to the next team, another NFC or AFC North loser. The Browns released Jadeveon Clowney. Probably not a bad move. He's eaten up some money and wasn't playing that well, I guess. But the Browns are not doing anything positive yet, so not much to say about that. The Browns are just typical, usual Browns. Moving on to the Eagles. The Eagles have done a lot.
Oh yeah,
they've done a lot.
This is actually kind of.
So we've already talked about them losing their offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. So here's what has happened in free agency so far. They have re-signed Fletcher Cox and James Bradbury. Good. They need to keep Fletcher Cox and James Bradbury. They've released Darius Slay, the number one DB this past season. They've released because probably too much money. They got Bradbury back there. But big play Slay was the nucleus of that defense. And losing him is going to be huge for that. Even though James Bradbury is a
catastrophic
guy, he was good in New York. He's good on the Eagles. Losing Darius Slay is going to be big. It's going to be very, very big for them. As well as Rashad Penny getting picked up, I guess, to replace the loss of Miles Sanders, which is a loss for them as well. And then they have gotten Jason Kelce to commit to another year, so Jason Kelce will be back. But I think the Eagles regress. They have a very tough schedule this season, and although they've made some good offseason moves, they've released a lot of players, I think they drop back to maybe 10 wins this season. because the division is getting tough around them, and they've even less, dude. They have a really tough schedule next year because they did so good this year. They're putting them against like the Chiefs, Bengals, Bills, all the greats in the AFC, and then the Giants and Commanders getting really good. So we'll see what happens.
Cowboys, no, all three of those teams are going to remain robust, and I don't know about the Eagles, dude. I think Giants are taking it over with all their trades that they've been having.
Yeah, we're gonna get to the Giants
and everything that they got going on.
Let's go and do the Giants. We already declared them the winners last week of free agency so far by getting DJ on a good contract. Once you read the fine print and tagging Saquon. Now they've gone and got DJ a really good target and Darren Waller, and they got this guy for a third-round pick. That was it. It took one third-round pick to get Darren Waller. Now, I understand he had bad injuries this past year, and it sat out for most of the season. But when Darren Waller is playing, he's getting 7 or 8 receptions for 80, 90 yards and a touchdown. So the fact that he's got that now is insane. They're going to go do more with, hopefully, with some wide receivers. Maybe they pick up Adam Thielen. Maybe they draft a couple of these receivers that everyone's talking about. But either way, the Cowboys are looking very, very good. The Commanders have signed Jacoby Brissett. I guess they have him as their potential starting QB next season, depending on what they do with the draft. And then they have extended Daron Payne. Very, very good move. Daron Payne is an absolute monster of a defensive player. They had arguably the best front seven in the league last year, so keeping those pieces is integral for their success next season, which is very possible given how close they were this past season. And the QB issues were really what the big problem was. And then a couple of injuries, and one of their players got shot. So, they had to deal with that. A couple other players got injured. So they stay healthy. Commanders will be really good. The Cowboys have not done much yet. They have obviously tagged Pollard like we said last week, but they have released Zeke. We saw this coming, but now it's official. The only thing I want to point out about this is that his last play was that horrible playoff. He played center and snapped the ball and got pancaked. So as much as I'm not a huge Zeke fan now, I respect everything that he's done. He was at one point arguably the best running back in the league. Just an absolute bulldozer of a human. And Cowboys fans will miss him. I don't like the Cowboys like most people don't, but they are going to miss him, and I hope he goes somewhere, maybe like the Bills or something, where he can just kind of go there and get a chance at the big one. Get those red zone catches or red zone carries, maybe third and short, like he's good at this past season. But I don't know. We'll see what happens with Zeke. I'm sure he's going to take a pay cut to go wherever he's going, assuming that he's not going to carry the RB1 load, which I'm assuming he's not. They've also gotten Stephon Gilmore. One of the greatest cornerbacks a couple years ago was the defensive player of the year for the Patriots. Played for the Colts and now is on the Cowboys. Good move. Nice to stand across from Trevon Diggs, a nice corner. We'll see what happens with the rest of the Cowboys. I mean, they still have so many issues on offense. Dak Prescott being one. They're paying Tony Pollard a lot of money this year. Although it's franchise tag, which is good, it's still a lot of money because it is a franchise tag. They got rid of Zeke. So we'll see what happens with the Cowboys next year. I think they'll probably be third in the division, maybe fourth, honestly, because I think the Giants are going to be one. I think the Commanders and Eagles fight for two, and then I don't know, Cowboys get last. Yeah, but I still think they do decent enough that maybe they're in it for a wild card spot, but don't get it. 49ers. They got Javon Hargrave from the Eagles, another loss for the Eagles. So, now that I say it, the Eagles have lost a lot more than I thought. The Eagles are going to be third in the division. I think they're going to compete for bottom with the Cowboys just because they've lost so much. But they got Javon Hargrave on the Niners, which the Niners already had probably the best defense in the league last season. Getting Hargrave is just disgusting. I think the Niners are once again going to be Super Bowl contenders next year. Assuming they don't lose 4 quarterbacks next season, they will be in the Super Bowl. And speaking of quarterbacks,
to make sure of that, they signed Sam Darnold just to make sure that doesn't happen.
Signed Sam Darnold, so now they released Jimmy G, obviously, which we'll get into in a minute because he's found a home. But they now have Brock Purdy, Trey Lance, who I'm assuming they're going to keep both because they're both on rookie contracts and both good. So why would you not? And then they got Sam Darnold as a third string, which I think is fine. Sam Darnold's not a great guy, but if you're in a situation where you have multiple QBs go down and your last resort is Sam Darnold, he's not going to lose you the game if your defense is that good. So, could be worse. Right. Moving on to the Raiders, they have signed Jimmy G. Now, I like this move from the Raiders because I think Jimmy G, I thought he should have gone somewhere else, like the Saints, because he's a guy that is very nice, like top 15, 16 quarterback, is very good at just getting the job done. Not going to win you a game if you're down by 30, but he's not going to lose you a game if you're up by, 10 or 15. So they got Jimmy G. decent move. I still don't think the Raiders are going to go anywhere because the division's so competitive and their coaching staff is dog. But they've also signed Jacoby Myers, which I think was kind of unnecessary. Obviously, having a thicketed, bolstered receiving core is never a bad thing, but I think their money would have been better spent elsewhere, given they already have Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow. I guess they don't have Darren Waller anymore. I was going to say him, but I guess they do need to replace that side of things, although that's not a tight end. He's still a good receiver. The Bills, very, very quiet this offseason. All they've done so far is re-sign Jordan Poyer, who is great safety. He's the guy that DeMar Hamlin took over for when he got injured this past season, so very good guy, solid re-sign. The Patriots, not much has happened, but some potentially big moves. Devin McCourty is retired. Unfortunately for the Patriots, he was very, very good in his time. Played all of his time in New England. So I'm sure Pats fans are sad to see him go, but thankful for the career he had. They have signed Juju Smith-Schuster to a multi-year deal. Finally getting Mac Jones, a true wide receiver. One, I think that's a pretty good pickup. Juju Smith-Schuster had a good year at the Chiefs this past year, and I think going to the Patriots is a pretty decent move. He's won his ring. Now he can go get money and try to build up another team. I'll take a break and ask you your thoughts because I've kind of just been rattling off everything. So what are your thoughts on some of these that I've mentioned so far?
So, with regard to, let's go with the Juju one right now. With Juju, I think this was necessary for Mac Jones. Because not to dismantle or discredit Jacoby Myers and the rest of the receiving core, they had and Jonnu Smith, who also left the team. I believe he went.
We're not there yet. No spoilers.
I know we're not there yet, but no spoilers. Sorry, guys. They needed to bolster that offense because Patriots defense top 5 in the league as always. Belichick knows what he's doing with his defensive players. That's not the issue right here. The issue is you have Mac Jones who's got a cannon of an arm, but he doesn't really have anybody who's got that oomph to them that are able to catch those deep shots, make those sharp cuts. Juju's a really smart investment here. Again, I'm hoping they invest more in receiver because I feel like that's their main issue because the running core is
they lost Jacoby Myers as well, which
Jacoby Myers
kind of just like I think Juju's probably better in terms of just production, not longevity. I think Jacoby Myers will be better long term, better on a long term deal. But if they could have kept Jacoby Myers and then also signed Juju Smith-Schuster, that would have been perfect because then they have two guys who can catch the ball really well. And then, like Dion said, great receiving core, great running back core, great defense. The Patriots, in a very competitive division, unfortunately, will still probably get last. But that's a division that you could see kind of like the NFC East this year where everyone's in it for a spot. They were in it this year. The Patriots, I don't think are gonna be worse next year, but they'll probably be a 8-9 win team somewhere like that unless they make some more moves. But we'll see. The Bucks have signed Baker Mayfield. Now,
yes, sir.
I don't like this.
I actually like that. I like it.
Why do you like it?
Because I like Baker Mayfield.
I do too, and that's why I don't like this. Because the Bucks are going to be horrible this year. They're slated for last in the NFC South. Now they still have some good players, like they still have Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, etc. But they couldn't get it done this past year with Brady, who's better than Baker Mayfield, and the other teams in the NFC South are getting good. All they've done is sign Baker Mayfield. I love Baker Mayfield. I love me some Baker Mayfield. I love it.
I love Baker Mayfield.
But he's just the guy to be there this year while they lose. And that's what I don't like about this deal. I want Baker to go somewhere where they're going to use him, man. I wish the Niners could have signed him.
What?
I mean, I don't know.
That's just negative thinking. Although realistic thinking, that's negative. What if Baker balls out this year?
I hope he does,
Baker Mayfield revenge tour.
He's
got better receivers than he did last year. Because even though he was with the Rams, a lot of the receivers were injured. Yeah, he wasn't. It's not like he was playing with Cooper Kupp or anything like that.
No, I think
this
Baker
year he's going to have a healthy
great.
Godwin.
He's going to do great. The thing is, none of these NFC South teams...
reason. Oh, you're thinking about the reasoning behind it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I hope he does good. I think the Bucks will be fine. They're not going to be like a 2-win team, but they're not going to get more than 7 wins probably because the coaching staff is horrible. That's why Brady couldn't get it done last year. With Brady, you could barely make the playoffs, and just because every other team was that freaking bad, and every other team's getting better, and all they're going to sign Baker. I mean, you need to get a better coach. I wanted Baker to go somewhere where he could have a chance to succeed. Now, he's probably going to be good because they have such good receivers, but the play calling is going to be bad. They're going to be in a horrible division, which seems good, but because everyone else is getting better, I don't know. I wanted better from my man Baker Mayfield. I wanted better for him. Unfortunately,
We need to protect Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
He's a national treasure.
Moving on though, the Lions have signed David Montgomery, I guess, to replace Jamal Williams. I don't really think that's a bad move if they're going to lose Jamal Williams, who was probably the biggest piece on that team this past year. But that was with DeAndre Swift hurt, so next season DeAndre Swift's going to be healthy. Bridges the gap, and then you got David Montgomery, which bridges the gap even more. I think they'll be better than they were this past year with just Jamal.
Right, it's a nice 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
I mean, Jamal always gave them that one extra yard that they needed, or if Jamal breaks off for like a 50-yarder, that's what David Montgomery brings to the table here. And Monty's a tough man. Monty's got that grit in him, and just like Jamal. So I mean, it's a good replacement.
The only thing
overall.
that sucks
I'm
about
actually
it is
excited to see this.
I like David Montgomery. I think he's a guy who can produce. I like Jamal Williams so much better. Not necessarily because he is better, although I think he is. Last year kind of proved it. Jamal Williams is so fun of a player to watch,
yes.
man. He is so fun.
Absolutely
And
agree.
when you thought about the Lions this past season, the first thing you thought was Motor City Dan Campbell, and second thing you thought about was Jamal Williams, because he had that dog in him.
Yeah.
He gave the greatest speeches in the locker room of, like, this is not us. This 1-7 bullshit that we are on is not us. We are a playoff team, and we need to go out there and freaking prove it. And then goes and scores 17 touchdowns in a season, having a arguably the best running back of this past season because of how efficient he was. Although his stats on the yardage didn't show it. He was getting 17 touchdowns. That is insane. No one else can say that in the league. That is just insane. So
Jamal's a monster.
I wanted Jamal to be on the Lions when they made their playoff run, because it's going to happen this year. I wanted Jamal to experience that because I feel like he deserves it with the Lions. But on the Saints, it could still happen this year with them potentially winning the NFC South. So we'll see. I hope he does, and maybe... I don't know. I just like Jamal Williams. I'm going to get a Jamal Williams jersey at some point, and it's going to be a Lions Jamal Williams jersey, because I feel like that's where the true Jamal Williams came out. Even if he scores 30 touchdowns this season, Jamal Williams is a Lions player for me, even if that's not the team that he's played with the most or made the most impact on. But that's just my opinion. Moving on to another NFC South team that I think could take the division. Up until today, I thought this team was going to, but now that the Panthers have made all the moves they have, I think that might be the Panthers' division to lose. The Falcons. They got Jesse Bates, crazy good defender, which is what the Falcons have been missing. Got him from the Bengals, picked him up in free agency, so didn't have to trade for it. They have traded for Jonnu Smith, who was a Titans tight end and then a Patriots tight end. Now, why would they get a tight end? Because Kyle Pitts is so productive. Here's why. Jonnu Smith is an incredible pass blocker and is a really good red zone threat. I think he had like 8 touchdowns a couple seasons ago, which is great. Plenty for a freaking tight end. And then, having that guy that can block and also maybe draw some coverage off of Kyle Pitts, get him more open. He's also a good pass catcher. I mean, he averages 11 yards a catch. So, having 2 tight ends that are really good leaves Kyle Pitts open for the targets that people have desperately been hoping he gets. And then they've also signed Taylor Heineke. I think it's a fine move. I think Desmond Ritter, David, you know what I mean. Desmond Ritter has a very similar play style to Taylor Heineke, and while Taylor Heineke is not one of the greats, I think that him being there to help Desmond Ritter figure out some of the things like how to read defenses, how to decide when to break out of the pocket when you're getting collapsed on, things like that is going to be very good. And then also if Desmond Ritter doesn't end up not working out or he goes down, Taylor Heineke played well this past season, almost got the Commanders into the playoffs, so he'll be fine for that. Although I wish the Falcons would have done something a little bit better, like signing Baker Mayfield. But it is what it is. I think Heineke's a decent pickup if they're going to go for a really cheap backup quarterback. I think Taylor Heineke's kind of a perfect guy for that. The Seahawks, mostly quiet. They have signed Draymond Jones. Decent guy, defensive player. Not much to say there. Seahawks just making a couple more moves. They got Geno Smith back, of course, so that's just another little bit of a bolster. I think the NFC West is going to be very competitive. The Cardinals are probably going to take a dip because Kyler's going to be hurt, and they're losing a few players like DeAndre Hopkins, J.J. Watt. The Rams are going to regress heavily, I think, because they blew all their money and picks on the one ring. Although I think they're going to be better this year. Now that Stafford and Kupp are going to be back, I still think they're going to be decent. And then it's still a Niners division to win, so I guess the Seahawks are going to be that wild card team potentially again this year. But the Jets signed Alan Lazard, and there's a lot to talk about here. If you want to break down the Aaron Rodgers stuff, you're more than welcome to, Gian, if you know what's going on with him.
I don't know too much, but I do know this. Aaron Rodgers is teasing the Jets Aaron Rodgers just wants the Jets to pick him up. But, like all teases, he has some conditions that need to be met. He needs, I believe it was Mercedes Lewis.
I'm shaking my head while
Randall
you're saying
Cobb.
this.
No? Is that not what it was?
No, you're right, but he said today on the Pat McAfee show that he did not make those demands.
Oh, he didn't? Oh, well,
Yeah.
I wasn't watching the Pat McAfee show.
Yeah, well,
Sorry.
it was very recent because that list came out. Everyone started shitting on Aaron Rodgers, and I'm a guy who says, you know what? If I hear negativity about a guy, that's not something like the things that John Morant did. That's on video where that's undeniable proof. I like to wait to see how they respond to see if there's any truth to it. But it was Alan Lazard, Mercedes Lewis, Randall Cobb, and Odell Beckham Jr. Mercedes Lewis is 38 years old. I mean, no. What Aaron Rodgers did say about it was that teams will call him whenever they're looking at signing a teammate. And this is very common in the NFL. This is not breaking news. This is something that got talked about. They were talking about Alan Lazard, so they called Aaron Rodgers because they what they'll do is they'll call teammates and say, I've seen him productive on the field, but how is he in the locker room? Is he a team player? Is he motivational? Is he a good leader in the locker room? All this type of things. And of course, Aaron Rodgers had nothing but good things to say about Alan Lazard, as he is very, very fond of Alan Lazard. But this accusation that he is demanding these players on their team is just not true. But Aaron Rodgers is going to go to the Jets. It's basically a done deal. Apparently, it's done, but there's something with the Packers that's holding it up. I'm sure the Packers just want probably an extra pick or something out of it, or maybe a player. I don't know what all's going to turn out of that, but it's going to be Aaron Rodgers over there. He's going to be reuniting with Nathaniel Hackett, which is going to give him that Cinderella story that he had, the Last Dance story he had, I should say, with Devontae Adams a couple years ago. And then Alan Lazard, who... I like Alan Lazard. I'm a big Alan Lazard guy. I think that he's a fantastic receiver and just hasn't really gotten the opportunity to shine. In terms of skill, I put him on the same tier as, let's say, a Calvin Ridley. I think he's one of the guys that's kind of been forgotten about just because he hasn't really done much lately. But I think he's a guy that has very high upside. I don't think he's as good as Calvin Ridley in terms of skill. I don't think he's going to be a top 10 player this season like Calvin Ridley's going to be. But he can be a top 15 wide receiver, and it would not surprise me if he had 1,000 yards this season and 7 or 8 touchdowns. But they signed him to a 3 or 4 year deal. They're going to get Aaron Rodgers as soon as the Packers' last bit of holdups finish up. But Aaron Rodgers is pretty much saying, yeah, I'm going to be a Jet. I want to go to the Jets. It's just a matter of things happening. I don't know what the deal's going to be, what the picks are going to be, what players move potentially, what picks move, the cap space issue. But all that stuff is going to be discussed. And as soon as it happens, we will let you guys know. The Colts.
Yeah. Thank you for correcting me, Ethan.
Yeah. No, it's fine because I just wanted to make that point because it just happened. Like the day this goes out is going to be probably at a point when everyone knows that the Aaron Rodgers demands are BS. But whenever this is recording, it just happened. Like this just happened to Pat McAfee. Just happened a little bit ago, and he said this. I just had my eyes on it because I was working today from home and decided I'm going to watch Pat McAfee show because I know Aaron Rodgers Tuesday or Aaron Rodgers Wednesday, I should say, and I want to know what's going to happen with that whole thing. So I watched that and figured that out. But yeah, it's good to know. But of course, take everything with a grain of salt until we know the full stories with any of the stuff, like some of these rumors about making demands. But he did say, he's like, yeah, I'd love to play with those guys. The OBJ is obviously a great player. What team wouldn't want him, which is a fair statement. There's not a team on the planet that said, hey, do you want OBJ? They would just say no. Like, he's a good wide receiver. Like, if you could just have him, why wouldn't you? Same thing with Alan Lazard. Mercedes Lewis, I don't know. He's so old. I mean, nothing against him, but no one plays at 38. Same thing with Randall Cobb. He's pretty old, too. I mean, at 32 years old, that's very old for a wide receiver. He was one of 5 wide receivers that caught more than one ball last season at that age. So, moving on to the Colts, who unfortunately have not had the best offseason. They lost Stephon Gilmore and they released Matt Ryan. Obviously, they're going to release Matt Ryan. They're going to draft a quarterback in the draft and use him. But sucks to see my boy Matty Ice go. He's probably going to end up commentating because he did that for a day this past season, and everyone loved it. So I think he'll probably end up going to do that, although I'd love for him to play a little bit longer because he's so close to passing up a couple of people like Big Ben and Phillip Rivers for all-time passing yards. And if he played one more season, even if it's just half, he'd pass him and be top 5 passing guards of all time, which I would love for my boy Matty Ice. I'm a huge fan of him. I would love it, but honestly, probably not going to happen. So the Colts doing what they're doing. Unfortunately, it's not good. The Chargers have signed Eric Kendricks. Good pickup, but they're losing Austin Eckler because he wants to trade after contract negotiations have stalled. I think it's probably fair. I think the contract that they were going to have to pay Austin Eckler probably wasn't worth it. They probably wouldn't be able to afford him and Justin Herbert and then keep guys like Mike Williams on the roster. So it's probably not a bad idea to get rid of him, but it's who do they get in return? They're going to have to get some sort of running back here because that was a big piece of their offense as a pass-catching running back. And with him gone, what do you do? Chargers probably going to regress a little bit unless they figure that whole thing out. The last team to talk about, and I'm almost out of breath, so I'm going to run through this last team, and then we'll just talk about it. The Dolphins.
All right.
Yes,
sir.
They have re-signed Raheem Mostert. I think is good. They got him on a pretty cheap deal. He's a really solid RB2. They have signed Mike White. I think is a decent backup. I mean, Mike White is one of those guys that plays really good for 2 games and then sucks. So, whatever. Decent backup, I guess. Like, not many other guys are going to get as a backup for basically no money.
He's a knight in shining armor when you least expect it.
I guess so, yeah. And then biggest of all, they have traded for Jalen Ramsey, so now they have definitively the best cornerback duo in the league. Of the past 5 seasons between Xavier Howard and Jalen Ramsey, there was 9 Pro Bowls in the last 5 seasons between these two guys. They're both top 10, top 5 cornerbacks in the league to both be on the same team. Especially with that electric offense with Tua, Tyreek, Jalen Waddle, decent running back core, especially if they can keep on Jeff Wilson as well. This Dolphins team is going to be nasty. I think they win the division next year. Them or the Jets. Because I think the Bills are going to regress a little bit. The Jets, dude, the Jets-Dolphins is going to be fun couple games this season. You got to admit, that's going to be some really fun games. And there's going to be some shootouts, man. That's going to be really, really good.
Who thought it was going to be the Jets and the Dolphins, dude? Like,
I don't know. Hey, give me your thoughts on all the Dolphins stuff. As the biggest Dolphins fan in the world, give me all of your thoughts on what's going on with the Dolphins.
Massive Dolphins fan. So here's the thing. Our secondary last season was looking a wee bit iffy because a lot of the games we'd be playing would be crazy high scoring. Don't get me wrong. Our secondary was there, but then injuries here or just some days when Tua wasn't around, it didn't help that our secondary was constantly getting bombarded. Let's get some help. We know the Jets are up to no good. We know that the Bills are passing like crazy. Let's beef up our secondary. There's not going to be a single throw that's going to get past them. Like you have Javon Holland, you have Jalen Ramsey, you have Xavier Howard. The ball's not going to fly. They're going to have to run it through us in order to get it anywhere, and that's not going to work either, dude. We're going to stop them, we're going to run stuff them, and then we're going to destroy them on our offense. Tyreek is still around. That's great. Waddle's still around. That's great. Gesicki, love the guy. Mostert, not a bad pickup. Not a bad guy to keep around, better said. Once we beef up our O-line, we will be unstoppable. You will see us number 1 seed in the playoffs for the AFC. They just need to make a more robust O-line and then forget about it. We're winning every single game.
They have the draft capital to do so as well. So it's gonna be good.
Sir.
So that's all so far for free agency signings, trades, releases. So far, if you're thinking of a few that we've missed, we talked about this last week. So go back and watch last week's video. The first bit, if you just want to hear NFL stuff, we talked about NBA, UFC as well. Watch the first bit, and you'll get all the football stuff, like all the Giants stuff, Saints stuff, Raven stuff. That happened last week. Anything that goes up after this will be in next week's episode, or if something big happens, we'll just hop on and record and upload something real quick. But that's everything for this week. Hope everyone enjoyed. If you just were here for information, that's it. Now we're just going to get into some commentary. So if you just wanted the names, have fun, bye. Subscribe for more. But now let's talk about the biggest winners and losers. Now, so far, the biggest winners, in my opinion, the Giants and the Panthers. Now, the Panthers sneakily just today got up there. If it weren't for them, I would say maybe it's hard because a lot of other teams haven't really done a ton. Probably the Saints, I guess. Even though they have that.
I was just about to say.
Even
though
they've made some, they have dug themselves a massive grave. They've made a couple of good signings that I think redeem them as much as possible. And a lot of other teams haven't done a ton. Like I think the Falcons made some good moves, but nothing crazy. The Jets obviously are up there. So I think the Giants and Jets and Panthers are the 3 winners so far. The biggest losers are the Vikings because they've lost a lot of players and not gotten anyone. The Bengals have lost a lot of players and not gotten really anyone. So those are the 2 biggest losers so far. And then I'll say the Ravens as well, if I have to pick a third, because they've lost a few players as well, and the Lamar Jackson stuff is still up in the air. They're not going to get money or picks for Lamar Jackson like they thought they were going to get. Probably going to get him not wanting to play on a 1-year deal, which is going to just make him unhappy. Go ahead, Gian.
I was gonna say, don't forget the Bears. I think the Bears are a huge winner in this.
Bears too,
just
yes.
because not just that draft capital. All right, I understand Bears fans, and my buddy Andrew Green told me this. Yes, their hand was forced. They were where they were in the draft. They weren't sure whether or not they were gonna get a good quarterback, probably AR-15. And hey, I'm a Gator, Anthony Richardson. I'm not a big fan of him. Sorry, Gator Nation. I'm not a big fan of him. I don't think he's a great quarterback. Maybe he's got great combine stats, but I don't know. I still haven't seen anything from, but the Bears, that was a fleece and a half, dude. To get two pretty decent picks, pick 9, pick 61, and then a first round pick next year, and then a second round the following year, and DJ Moore. Like we said, DJ Moore is an absolute stud. All right, DJ Moore was pretty much the Panthers' entire offense / deep threat post C-Mac. Christian McCaffrey was a big part of that offense, but then after him, it was all the DJ Moore show. Having him on the Bears offense is going to be phenomenal for them. And then getting Tremaine Edmonds, who's an absolute beast on defense. Hey,
Yeah.
I think the Bears are a huge winner.
The Bears
in
as
all
well.
this
Yeah,
overall.
they're up there for the top 4. They all get A+. The Giants, Panthers, Bears, and Jets. Jets is contingent on them still getting Aaron Rodgers. If they don't, they drop down to a B, just because they haven't made bad moves, but they haven't done anything crazy good. But those all get A+. Now the Vikings are an F-, absolute worst of the worst. Bengals are a D- because they're not as bad, but they're still pretty bad. The Eagles are the team that I don't know where to put them because they made some big moves. Good and bad. I think they're sitting at as much of a B-,
At a C.
yeah, B-, C+ as you can because while they made some really good moves, they made some horrible moves as well. So it's tough to
And
place
they've had
them.
some
But
substantial losses, dude. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
not having Miles Sanders there, love him, hate him. He was still a good part of that offense. Losing big play Slay, Darius Slay for me.
That's
like,
so big.
All the re-signings for me, all the re-signings and the people you pick up are canceled out by losing Darius Slay. That's how good of a player he is. And it sucks to see him go. Where do you think Darius Slay might go, though? Because you know there's going
That's
to be
the
a
big
team
thing,
out there
dude.
that wants to pick him up.
I have honestly no idea. I would love for someone like the Falcons to pick him up, man. Because
I was just about to say that. What if the Falcons
They can
snag
afford
up
it.
after? Yeah, they
They can
could.
afford it.
They definitely
They get
could.
Jesse
Oh,
Bates
dude.
and they go get frickin' him, and they still got AJ Terrell back there. He was really good whenever he was playing.
Oh man.
Falcons defense would be good, which is a weird thing to say. Also, the Falcons extended their offensive guard Chris Lindstrom. Didn't really mention that earlier, but that's still big. They got a decent piece of the line. They were locking him down for a while, so I don't know, man. Lots happened, but that's all I have. Unless you want to add anything to what's happened so far, but other than that, I'm going to wrap it up for this week with free agency stuff and.
I mean that's pretty much it. Once we get a good picture of what the teams are finally going to look like, once they're set in stone for the season, then we'll run down through our analysis as to like what their strong points are, weak points, what we're going to be expecting about the team. That'll come later on as summer comes by and all the trades are done, and whatnot, and then we'll finally get a good grasp.
Yeah,
But
man,
for
we're
this
going to
week-
give predictions, like a full,
Oh, yeah.
all season prediction for every game, where we think every team's going to place, everything. We're going to do that at some point, and we're going to put some kind of bet on it, maybe another jersey
Oh,
or
yeah,
something, and see
Yeah,
who gets
let's go
closest,
for
so.
a jersey.
Yeah. Awesome.
Alrighty, y'all. Well, thank you guys for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe. Look at all of our other content. If you want to see Ethan smash the television, feel free to look through our videos. And thanks again for being here. So take care, everybody, and stay frosty.